The scariest part of the house is usually the basement, because it's dank, it's quiet, and it's dark. In this story, that's no exception, as the basement itself has many horrors to hide. This story is called 1 Year Lease. The story begins with three roommates, and they are referencing that the basement itself seems to have flickering lights, and no matter how many times that they go through and try to fix the light bulbs, this event keeps happening. This goes unchanged for a long time, and the basement itself seems to be this very constant area. The house, though, seems to stay unnaturally cold, originating in the basement itself and getting cold throughout the whole house, even during the summertime. At points, the coldness in the basement is actually so damaging that it actually freezes pipes to the washing machine there, and they have to go ahead and get that fixed. This is when they realize that there's a steel grate in the basement, and there tends to be this loud dripping sound that keeps coming constantly, even though there isn't anything that really is giving this dripping, this water source, like something to actually run through. As time goes on, events seem to unfold and they begin to escalate. There seems to be items that go missing and other events like people moaning and loud noises that are coming from disembodied areas where there's no one around, and it starts to escalate from there. One of the roommates he has this weird habit where he actually judges the sex of the roommates based off how much noise they're making, as strange as that sounds, and he gives them a rating and slides this rating under their door like on an index card. The reason why this is referenced is because apparently at some point there is an index card that gets slid under the door that actually comes when no one is actually else in the house. So there's like these events that are happening where there's no one around and there's no quite a way to explain why this is happening. See, then at one point one of the characters ends up hearing what sounds like laughter of a child in a music box playing. There isn't really any kind of explanation to this, and it gets ignored so that no one really kind of looks upon it. But after this, the residents actually start losing more items, and they actually find these items in the basement kind of all together, as every one of them lost an item, so it wasn't just a roommate stealing things. Once this happens, the one roommate finds their watch, which had been lost, and the watch actually keeps dying on 3 a.m. They have the battery replaced in this watch on multiple occasions, and this event still keeps occurring, so obviously there's something wrong here. After this, there's this very potent and pungent smell that begins to come from the basement. It seems to be more drastic at some times and then less drastic at others, and the amount of time that it lasts seems to be kind of different also. It is something where it is originating from the basement, but they cannot find where this is coming from. So because of this, the roommates actually begin to avoid this basement due to the fact that something is in there, something is wrong, but they can't seem to put their finger on it, so they just avoid it at all costs. So they begin to use the laundromat for laundry and things of that nature. But at some point, one of the roommates ends up having to actually go down into the basement because they are out of money and they have no clothes to wear. So they have to go downstairs. So they go downstairs and they begin to do their laundry, but they stay on the phone with a friend to try to alleviate the situation. And at this point, they actually begin to hear the sound of the music box and the laughter of the child. And then all of a sudden, a basketball covered in soot comes out of a shadow in the corner, and it seems like it's been bounced rather than rolled, which means that there's like some kind of embodiment there. That's actually where the story ends, and you don't get any kind of information on what actually is happening, and it leads a lot to interpretation. The thing that got me, that made me kind of think about what was happening, is that there is soot on this basketball that is bouncing out at this roommate. So I'm thinking that what happened was that this little girl, or whoever this child is, was killed in this house and burned probably, hence why there's soot on the ball and why there's that pungent smell. But also on top of that, that's why like the lights are flickering and it stays cold, because there's some kind of presence there. And I think that's what is actually making all these noises and things of that nature, is that this house is haunted because of some kind of events that happened prior. there isn't really anything giving you that information, so you kind of have to open it up to your own kind of thoughts and interpretations, and that's where my thoughts came. I think with this story here being open to interpretation, it does help it. And I think that it also has a better way of building up anticipation, but the climax itself still ends up being kind of soft because it ends up being right at the end, and it falls short because you have this scary event, but there isn't anything really there. It's just like a boo moment and it ends, and there isn't any kind of follow-up, which hurts the story in my opinion, because now you have to put in all these open spots, and there isn't any kind of discovery on why these things are happening. It's just kind of what is happening. The story is called 1 Year Lease because it is actually kind of written in a journal style, where as time goes on, it kind of lists off what days it's happening and things of that nature. I didn't see any pattern in these days. I think it's just more of why kind of giving you a timeline of the story itself, but it doesn't really give you any kind of clear detail. I might go back and try to see if there's any kind of pattern there, but I didn't see one as I was writing my notes. But with that, I think I'm going to give this story a good rating. I think it was pretty fun to read, and because there's a lot of interpretation that you can put in on this story, it does definitely bring this story up. Even though there isn't a strong climax, you are able to kind of fill in the blanks yourself, and because of that, you're able to put and make more joy out of the story, say than like with the bottle, where there is interpretation there also, but a lot of it is actually put into this very small box because of how the story is written, versus this story here having so much open detail. You kind of have to make a story for yourself, and I think that imagination, that part of it, makes it not only more fun but even scarier than a story where they feed you all the information. So next time you go down in the basement to do laundry, don't stick around for too long, because if there's a smell or a laugh, you might get hit with a basketball next. See you then.